Hi everyone, and welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. So today I'm making a house for a bunch of roommates, and this is for the notable newcomers household that I made in a Create Sim video last week. Because in that video I talked about how I was working on a mid-century modern home for them to live in, because I just like making households to go with my houses and houses that go with my households and that whole thing. I just find it fun to just make those as a pair together from time to time. And once again, I'm building this house in a very weird way. I've done this in a few builds where I just kind of build the house by laying out the floor plan as I go, which I know looks super odd, but I knew that I wanted to make a mid-century modern home that had 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, but at the same time wasn't super huge. So I found it easier to just kind of just lay out the rooms. I kind of start with the bedrooms, make sure that I get all the bedrooms in, that I get all the bathrooms in, and that it kind of fits it within this mid-century modern form factor, because I did look at a lot of pictures of mid-century modern homes as inspiration, and I really wanted to try my best to get that style down. And I did struggle with that a little bit. This was actually my 3rd attempt at making this house, because I had a couple of other builds I started with the intent of, that were intended to be for this household, but I ended up scrapping them because I wasn't feeling them. And I think the main reason for that was that I was trying to follow floor plans, because I just had this feeling like I was telling myself that I'm not gonna be able to get the style right unless I follow a floor plan exactly. Like I just kind of didn't trust myself to get the style right, but I kept getting frustrated with the floor plans because I felt like they were too big and they had garages attached to them, because I did want this house to have a garage, but I was struggling a little bit with having it be attached to the house because mid-century modern homes can be very boxy. And having the garage attached to that, which is itself a large boxy structure, just kind of like added to that bulkiness and boxiness of the house, and I really did not like it. And I just decided, I realized after those 2 attempts I didn't like that. I just need to do my own thing. I know what I want. I just need to trust myself, go in, just build what I'm looking for, and it'll turn out fine. And it did. Like, I'm really glad I just kind of did my own thing with this house, didn't rely on floor plans, because I am really happy with it. I mean, it's definitely a little bit boxy for my taste, but I think the shape of it is pretty good. I like how the entrance area has, like, rather than having the roof extend directly over it, I just kind of pulled out the eaves to cover the entrance area, so you kind of have this like higher ceiling over the entrance area, if that makes any sense. Like, that was something that I just thought was really cool, and that was something that I took from one of those floor plans that I was looking at, because one of the scrapped attempts was kind of similar to this one, but as I said, it had the garage as part of the house structure, so it just kind of was very big and bulky and boxy and not very good. And then my first attempt was a lot bigger than this house, and it was a little bit more modern, and I felt like that didn't make sense at all for 4 Sims who are just starting out. They're kind of like roommates who have just moved to Del Sol Valley, so I wanted to make something a little bit on the smaller side that fitted with that better, although I still feel like this is kind of unrealistic for 4 Sims starting out, because this world is of course based on Los Angeles, and from what I've heard, real estate in Los Angeles is ridiculously expensive. Like, I think a house like this would probably be around $1 million in Los Angeles, which to me is just absolutely bonkers. Or maybe not quite $1 million, maybe like 600,000 or 700,000, which is still crazy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the real estate out there is just kind of ridiculous. So I'd imagine that rent for a place like this would probably be like $3,000 to $5,000 a month, maybe even more than that. I don't even know. I don't know like a whole lot about the real estate out there, but yeah, that's probably not the amount of money that for young adults who are trying to make it big, make it, become famous are gonna. That's probably a lot more than they're gonna be able to afford. But I mean, it's a Sims. That doesn't really matter a lot. I think this is still suited pretty well to the Sims. Oh, and also at this point, like, I know the ground looks really dry and dingy right now. I was having this really weird terrain glitch. I don't know if any of you have ran into this, where I just went into build mode. I was working on this and I was like, why does the ground look so awful? Like, I don't remember the ground texture in Del Sol Valley being this awful. Like, what is going on here? And then I went to like one of the other worlds to look at something, and then I realized that, oh, it's like a whole glitch where for some reason the game is making the terrain in all the worlds look like winter terrain. So I had to like go to live mode and then go back in, and then it was fine. So if any of you have that problem, that's what you need to do. Yeah, I don't know why that's happened. There's just been some weird, I feel like there's been some weird build mode glitches since that terrain paint or the terrain manipulation patch came out. Like, they fixed some of that stuff with that hotfix, but I'm still noticing some weird things. And I did also notice that they added this new fence in, so that's what I used around the yard. And it's kind of like another fence that we have in the game, but I feel like it has a little bit more detail to it and it looks a little bit more worn. But the thing that really frustrated me is that there's no matching gate to it. Like, I sat there for like 15 minutes. I'm not kidding. I sat there for 15 minutes literally trying to find the gate to go with it and like just trying out different versions of that gate that I did use, trying to like find the one that matches. Like, I was pulling out all these gates. I'm like, is this the one that matches it? No. There's no gate that matches it. That is so frustrating. Like, it's awesome that they added a new fence, but I don't get why they didn't add in a matching gate. I feel like it just makes it really difficult to even use this fence. I mean, the gate I used is kind of fine, but it doesn't look like it matches. It looks like they have this fence that's a little bit older, than they just stuck this new gate on it, which I guess happens sometimes, but it just bugs me. Like, I just wish that wasn't the case. And yeah, right now we're just carrying on with the landscaping. As you can see, I have a nice curved brick path going to the driveway, and then we kind of got a stone path going off that to the gate. And oh yeah, here was where I finally like really realized that there was something wrong with the terrain, and then I just fixed it. So yeah, it's looking a lot better here because I realized it when I was starting to put down the plants and the terrain paint and all that. And I was like, nothing goes right together, and yeah, then I fixed it. So now we're all good. So I'm just putting the plants in here. So I went for a very lush landscaping, and I did end up bordering it with rocks. I cut it out though because that's always just kind of tedious, like just sizing down rocks, because whenever I do the rock borders, I usually end up sizing down the rocks because I feel like they're a little bit too big as they are. So I find that sizing them down just makes them just right for that. Yeah, so here you can see we have the rock border in, and I feel like that looks a lot nicer. It added something much needed to this landscaping here, and right now I'm just trying to figure out some details for the front of the house. So we've got those flower beds, which came with Get Together, or not Get Together, Get Famous. Like, all these Get expansion packs get kind of confusing. But yeah, those flower beds are really, really nice. Like, I don't always like to put flower beds on my builds because sometimes I feel like they look kind of busy and a little too much, but I think those are just right. Like, they look really good. And then I also used that awning that came with Seasons, and that was just another nice touch, add a little bit of detail to the front of the house. And I also used the siding from Seasons because I did want to use, so my whole like thought before I went in to do this build was that I would use the siding that came with Get Famous. But I feel like for some reason it just didn't fit this style of house quite right. Because when I was looking at the pictures of mid-century modern homes, I noticed that a lot of them had vertical siding like this. And I felt like this siding just worked perfectly for that. Because I did notice that some of the mid-century modern homes I was looking at had thicker siding like this. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this turned out. And right now I'm just getting a pool in the backyard. So they've just got a little pool area over here. And then I end up adding a table for them to eat at. And I'm not sure because there's some stuff I forgot to record, but I did end up adding a little bar to the backyard. Like, I added one of those ones from City Living that has the lights on it just because I thought it'd be kind of nice to make it like an area where they would have get-togethers and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of a cool hangout area. But other than this pool area, there isn't really a whole lot to this backyard. There's just some more landscaping. I kind of did the same thing where I have the rocks and then the same plants that I used in the front yard in them, and there's like a stone path going from the gate over to the pool area. But apart from that, I just kind of left it open grass, except for maybe like a water balloon bucket that I put out somewhere, because I just didn't really feel like it would make sense for this yard to have like, oh yeah, I did also add a clothes drying rack, but other than that, I just didn't really feel like it made sense to have a lot of other stuff in the yard. Like, of course, there aren't kids living here, so we're not going to have like a swing set or a slide or anything like that. You know, it's a bunch of young adults, so yeah, I just didn't really feel like there would be a whole lot else going on in the yard. And plus, you know, like, usually when you look at yards of homes, there is a good bit of open space because, you know, you want space to just run around and that sort of thing. So I just didn't feel like it was necessary to try to fill in all of the space in the yard. Like, I just felt like it was kind of nice how I left it in the end. But here I'm just adjusting the plants in the front of the house a little bit because I realized they were a little bit too closer together because I made the plants in the back of the house a little bit more spread out. I like how that looked more, so I just wanted to go ahead and fix that up. And as you probably noticed, I did also use a little bit of terrain manipulation in this build, just a subtle amount this time, because I just wanted to make it so the land around the house looked like it was slightly elevated, because again, like, this was the same thing with my last build. I just didn't really feel like putting this house on a hill would really look right, but I do like just making a subtle amount of like just making a subtle hill on a lot, just because I feel like that's very realistic. Because, you know, most of the time, even if a lot is relatively flat, you still have that little bit of sloping on it. So it's just really cool that we can now do that in the game. Like, I'm still not over it, but I definitely want to make a build that puts those tools to use more in the future, because I haven't really done anything crazy with them, but I definitely want to try that. And I was thinking about doing that with the build that I make for Christmas, because I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to make, but I was thinking about making a Tudor home that's decorated for Christmas. I think I did that like 3 years ago, but you know what? I can make a different one. Like, I just really like that style and haven't built in it in a really long time. So I wanted to do that again. I was thinking that it'd be kind of cool to make this house that's sort of on a hill and has a bunch of pine trees around it, like it's kind of in a forest. So maybe I can do something like that in Windenburg. I don't know if I wanted to use the 64 by 64 lot for that, but I feel like that's what I kind of have to use to get the effect of that. But building on a 64 by 64 lot, it's definitely an undertaking, so I don't know if I want to do that, but I don't know. If I do that, I could just fill in most of the lot with pine trees, because I just really wanted this look of a house that's kind of in a forest, but it's like decorated for Christmas and stuff like that. I was also thinking I could go in a more whimsical direction and make a gingerbread house, which I know a bunch of other people have done, but I was thinking it could be kind of fun to do my own take on that. So let me know if you all would rather see something more whimsical like the gingerbread house, or if you want to see something a little bit more realistic like the Tudor home that's decorated for Christmas. And if I do the Tudor home thing, I don't know if I want to do the whole like 64 by 64 lot with a forest around it thing. I don't know. I might just do like, you know, something on a smaller size lot that happens to have a bunch of pine trees on it. But, you know, either way, like, let me know if you want to see something more realistic or more whimsical this year. Like, it might be good to go in a more whimsical direction, because that's not a thing I do very often, and it's always kind of good to do something different. But yeah, either way, just let me know if you have a preference between the two. But at this point, I believe I'm finishing up with the outside of the house. I was just adding a basketball net above the garage door, because I thought it'd be kind of fun if they had a basketball hoop to just play basketball with together. Because, I mean, they're not all, like, these roommates aren't really close friends, of course. Like, it was a situation where one of them found this house and started renting it, and then, of course, needed 3 other people to fill the other bedrooms, because it's way too expensive for one person to pay for on their own. So they, you know, found these other roommates through a roommate finder website. So neither of them knew each other prior to this at all. But, I mean, you know, maybe they kind of could develop a little bit of a friendship, although as I discussed in the Create Some video, they definitely do butt heads, which is a thing that happens when you have people who don't really know each other very well coming together to live together. And I mean, that's something that can even happen when people know each other. Like, you definitely find stuff out about your friends when you live in the same place together, and, you know, it's very easy to get on each other's nerves. So, I mean, there's of course some of that headbutting, but, you know, I think they definitely, like, I would definitely see them just spending time together and having fun and getting along from time to time and stuff like that. But now we're actually on to the furnishing, and as you can see, I'm just putting out a bunch of mid-century modern furniture, because the whole reason I wanted to make a mid-century modern house was to put all of this stuff to use, because I really like these items. Like, I don't know if I would want to furnish my whole house in a mid-century modern style, but it's definitely a style that I really like. And I actually do have some mid-century modern furniture in my house. Like, it's really not much. It's just like a coffee table, end table, and console table set that I got for really cheap. Like, I got it like 3 or 4 years ago, because I was moving into a house that I had to furnish myself. It was my first time kind of doing that. And I found a deal where someone was selling like a set of those 4 tables for like $100. And they were actual like 70s mid-century modern tables that looked really nice. And that might seem like a lot for 40-year-old tables, but they were like $1,000 when the person got them new or something. Maybe not that. It was like them and a couch for $1,000 in the 70s. But either way, they were like really nice quality furniture back then. So it's actually a pretty good deal, and they're really cool, and I like them because they're definitely something interesting that you wouldn't really find nowadays. So that was a really cool find, and I was kind of imagining that was what was going on with the furniture in this house, because I did use a lot of fairly nice looking mid-century modern furniture, which I was thinking like maybe didn't seem realistic for these 4 young adults who was coming together. You know, like it might not really seem realistic that they have this well-furnished house. But I was also thinking like this could have been stuff that they got secondhand from like a family member who had furnished their house with this stuff and was getting rid of it because they were refurnishing, and they just like gave it to them for a really cheap price and they used it to furnish their house, which is probably way overthinking, but that's just kind of how I think about things with this. And I feel like just because it's a house for young adults, it doesn't mean it needs to be this, you know, gross, disgusting place with like super cheap furniture. Like, it could still be nice. So that's just kind of what I was going for with this. And you might have noticed that I did also stick a plate on the coffee table and I stuck a cup on the end table. And that's because one of the Sims who lives in this house is a little messy. I did give her the slob trait, but I wasn't thinking she was like a slob in the typical sense, like kind of like what you think about when you first hear the word slob. But she's definitely not very neat, and she does get on her roommate's nerves with leaving messes around and such, you know, stuff like that. You know, like, she's not super messy, but she's just the kind of person who like eat while watching TV and then just leave the plate on the coffee table and not walk it over to the sink, or we'll just be drinking something and just leave it on the end table and that sort of a deal. And one of the other roommates does have the neat trait, so they do kind of butt heads a lot because they have these very different levels of cleanliness. So he gets annoyed with her for just leaving stuff all over the place, and she gets annoyed with him for getting on her case. And I think that is the kind of thing that like does happen when you have people brought together who have these different, like very different levels of cleanliness, because that was something that I actually had an experience with when I was in college, because I lived in this house with, I think it was like 7 other roommates, 6 or 7 other people, which is a lot. Like, it was just this whole ridiculous thing, but it was cheap. Like, I was sharing a room and I paid like $200 a month. So for a college student, that is like an awesome deal. But the problem is other people had the same idea. So you had like 8 people in this house, and it was ridiculous. And one couple was super neat, and there's other people who were like super messy, and then I was somewhere kind of in the middle. So I got caught in the middle of their arguing with each other. So that was like really frustrating. Like, I remember one time this guy, he made chicken or something like that, and he left like the bits of raw chicken all over the counter, which is absolutely disgusting. And one of the roommates who were super neat like woke up the whole house at like 8 in the morning, which is early for college students. He just like was yelling to try to get everyone up because he was so pissed off about the chicken and wanted to find out who left it on the counter, which, I mean, fair enough, like, that was really disgusting, but like, I also don't know if it's necessary to go to the extreme of like waking up the entire house first thing in the morning to try to find out who left the chicken on the counter. Like, it was not fun being woken up by my roommate yelling at the top of their lungs to try to get everyone up to like go down the kitchen so he could like ask who left the chicken on the counter. Like, that was not fun. And then I remember another time, one roommate, I don't know why he did this, but instead of keeping his dirty clothes in his room in a hamper like most people do, he kept them in the hallway between our rooms, because like the doors were across the hall from each other, and he would just pile them up in this like little nook that was kind of past the doors in the hallway. And he let his laundry go so much that it started like, the pile started to like move in front of my door, and it like stepped on his clothes getting into my rooms. And this was also during finals week, so like everyone was stressed out, tensions were a little high, and everyone was just like really grumpy. And I got so frustrated that I stepped on his clothes getting into my room that I chucked all of his clothes back into his room. And he came home later in the day. I was just sitting in my room and started like yelling, "Who put my dirty clothes back in my room?" And like, that probably, like, that, I will acknowledge that was not the best way to handle the situation. Like, that was a very passive aggressive way to handle it, and I should have just like talk to him like an adult, but he wasn't home and I was really pissed off, so I just chucked them all back in his room. And I just found it so hilarious that he was yelling about someone putting his dirty clothes back into his own bedroom. And, you know, like, of course later I apologized for doing that, and I was like, okay, I should have talked to you, like, that wasn't the right way to handle, but you also should not keep your dirty clothes there. So yeah, there's just always fun stuff like that with roommates, and I have like so many stories from living in that place, because like that situation was just crazy. And like, the people I lived with were like they could be cool to talk to, but it's just like when you live with people and you're dealing with these other things, like, it can get real frustrating. But anyway, I should probably get back to the build now. So currently we are furnishing the laundry room, which is kind of an awkward room. Like, I was thinking that maybe it was kind of odd to have a laundry room this size in this house, but I wanted to have laundry in this house, and I wanted to break up that living space a little bit because I didn't want to have that whole area be open from the living room back to the kitchen. Like, I kind of wanted to make it a little bit narrower where the dining room was, so I thought that that was a really good way to do that. And I also did stick a foosball table in that one spot, because my original thought was that like if this was a real house, like, you would have that area maybe be like an eat-in kitchen nook, although that might be a little necessary. Like, you probably don't need bar seating and a dining room and another eating area in the kitchen. So I don't know, like maybe it's something that would have originally been intended to be a home office area or something along those lines. But I thought that for these Sims, having a foosball table there would just suit it a lot more. Because, like I said, there were a bunch of young adults living together. So I figured, they maybe want like a cool hangout area, where they had a foosball table that they, they just thought it'd be cool to have a foosball table in this house. So they just chucked it there because that was the only space to really put it. So I thought that was something kind of cool. But we are starting on the bedrooms, and this bedroom is for Roxy, who is an aspiring DJ and dancer and music producer. So she is here in Del Sol Valley to try to become a famous DJ, dancer, and music producer. She wants to get famous for one of those or all of them. Like, it doesn't really matter. She just wants to become better known for at least one of those things. So in her room, we do have the music production station. And she did end up with the smallest room, but that's because the garage is kind of like her space. So out in the garage, I end up putting a DJ booth and a dance floor, and there's also some workout equipment out there, so maybe that's for the other roommates, but it's mostly her space. So I was just thinking that, she took the smaller room because that meant that, she took the smaller room so that she could have the garage, just so it kind of made a little bit more sense, balance things out, because that's her space too. But I really like how this room turned out. I did get a little stuck on what to do with it at first, and I did keep the walls in the bedrooms pretty neutral because I was imagining that this is a house that they're renting, I don't think they're going to be able to buy this house outright. So this is a place that they're renting, so of course the rooms, like the walls in the rooms are kind of neutral. Like, it's not going to be a situation where the walls are all painted to suit the Sims specifically. So I just tried to keep them neutral and then just furnish the room to suit them, and I did like how that turned out. But here we are working on the bathroom, and nothing too exciting going on here. We're just picking out some towels, so I went with these nice orange ones. I was going to go with that busier shower curtain at first, but I just felt like that was a little much with the wallpaper that I had in here, because you had the very loud colors on that, and then you had like that pattern. It was just a little bit too much. So I do go ahead and change that to something a little bit plainer in the end, and I think that did look better. And I also used that new sink that came with Get Famous, that mid-century modern sink, which is just really cool. Like, I just like a lot of that mid-century modern furniture, and I feel like that's a style that's kind of coming back in. Like, I feel like that's a thing I've been noticing. Like, I went into some kind of like home decor store recently. I think it was like, I can't remember what it was. It was like this really big home decor store, and I was just looking at the chairs. I noticed that they had a lot of avocado green chairs and chairs in that orange color that's kind of from the 70s. So it's really interesting to see all that stuff coming back and how things just always repeat like that. Like, that's always been the thing, where things go out of style and then they end up coming back years later. So I feel like now we're seeing a lot of trends from the 70s and maybe even the 80s coming back. But it's also neat how when things come back in style, they're not exactly how they were in the past. Like, they're similar to that, but then also kind of evolved a little bit, so they're kind of got some of the new mixed in with them too. Like, I think it's really cool how things come back but evolve at the same time as time goes on. But we are on to Craig's bedroom, and he is the aspiring actor. He is also the Sim who is neat, so I was trying to not clutter this room too much, but we do end up with some clutter. Like, we've got some stuff here on top of the dresser, so maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I think it's fine though, because like the stuff's kind of in the containers and the clothes are neatly folded, so I think it still works. And I did put a book on the end table, which I maybe shouldn't have done, but I mean, I think that's fine, because maybe that's just a book that he's reading and he likes to just keep it there on his nightstand so that he can easily get to it. Like, he doesn't want to put this book he's reading back in the bookshelf every day and then pull it back out when he wants to read it again. So I think that still works. And I was going to use this desk from City Living in here, but I also wanted to use this bookshelf somewhere in the house, because I don't think I used it anywhere else. Like, I wanted to use it in the living room, but unfortunately I didn't have enough space for it. So I just went with the smaller desk that I used in Roxy's room and just, of course, colored it differently and put it in this room. And yeah, I think that ended up working out pretty well. So I am happy with how this room turned out. And I do like how that leopard print rug looks on the floor. Like, I think that definitely gives this room like kind of a cool vibe. And there isn't really a whole lot of, like, there aren't really any seal building items in this room apart from the bookshelf, because I don't think many are really necessary for the acting career. I mean, we got the mirror, and I believe he can use that to practice his acting, so I didn't think putting the microphone in here was necessary at all. But we are done with that room, so we are now on to the master bathroom, and this is the bathroom that is connected to Ria's bedroom, and she is the stylist sim of the household. She's also the one who was a little bit of a slob. And in the creative sim, I mentioned this, but it's kind of funny because she's like the one who's messy, but she wanted her own bathroom so she didn't have to deal with other people's messes. Like, she kind of doesn't realize how messy she is. I mean, it's not super bad. She just leaves stuff out a lot, more so than the other sims in the household. And as I said before, it frustrates them. So I was trying to show that in this bathroom here by putting all of these makeup items that are in the debug catalog up on the counter. And I just thought that was a really nice touch. And I actually didn't know that these existed until I was watching one of Simlessy speed builds recently, and I noticed her like pulling all of these out and sticking them on the counter, and I was just like, oh, I should try that. Like, that's just such a really cool, realistic touch. So I just really like how this turned out, because we got like a nail file up here. I tried to put that little poof up here, but it kind of like is sunken below like where it says. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but it ends up like placing lower into the counter than it should. Like, I couldn't get it to raise up to where it looked like it was actually on the counter. Like, it was either floating or just hidden down inside the counter. So unfortunately I couldn't use that. But we are now onto the bedroom, and I was originally going to give her the streaming station, but I just wasn't happy with how it was looking in the room, and I was having trouble arranging things. And I also wanted to add in that stylist chair, but I was worried about it not being usable if I had that in there along with the streaming station. So I ended up removing it and just focusing on the stylist chair. I also wanted to add in that inspiration board that came with the stylist career, and with that streaming station, I was having trouble figuring out a spot to fit that in. So I just figured it's best to get rid of that and focus on the styling career stuff, because there is another sim who is supposed to be more like the social media sim, so I figured it's fine just leave it at one of those stations. And I actually had a lot of trouble furnishing this room. Like, I had 3 scrapped attempts at furnishing this room. I of course left them out because I don't, of course we don't want to watch me furnishing this room and then undoing it all 3 times over, but I think that streaming station was a big part of why I was just kind of struggling with the arrangement of this room and wasn't happy with it. So once I got rid of that, it turned out a lot better. Like, I had a much easier time with furnishing it. I am kind of worried that they're not going to be able to get to this board here because it is blocked by some stuff, but I'm hoping that they don't need to actually like be directly in front of it to use it. I haven't really used it that much, so I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but that is something I want to try to test. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to test it before uploading, but yeah, hopefully that should be fine. But anyway, I think we are getting pretty close to being done with this room, and as you can see, we've got the stylist chair there in front of the window. We've got a computer desk that I'm sticking in here because I just wanted each of these rooms to have their own computer, so they just, because like everyone nowadays has her own computer pretty much, so I just wanted to get that in here. And then we've got the rug in here, and I think that is going to be it. Oh, and I also stuck some dirty clothes around the hamper because I was just kind of imagining that, she hasn't done her laundry in a while, so that's kind of overflowing, and it's just kind of hanging out on the floor around the hamper. But we are on to Craig's room, which is the last bedroom in this house, although it isn't the last room because we still have the garage to furnish. But this one actually came together pretty quickly, which was really nice after all the time I spent on Ria's bedroom, because I think I spent at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half on her bedroom, which is just absolutely ridiculous. But as I said, I just wanted to get it right and put in the time to be happy with that room. But yeah, this one thankfully was really easy. Like, I'm just slapping some posters up on the wall here. We got the streaming station here, which of course took up a good bit of space in the room, so that just kind of made it easier. Like, it's always easier when you have something like this that takes up a good bit of the space, so you have less things to, like, you don't have to figure out quite as many things to put into the room. But yeah, I just wanted to have a standing mirror in here. I also wanted to have some sort of bookshelf, so I was just trying to figure out how to fit all of that in this area without making it so the Sims couldn't actually get into the room. Like, I was gonna put the hamper here, but then I realized that that's kind of tight. Like, the Sims might not be able to actually get into the room, but when I arrange it like this, it's fine. Like, I did test this, and they can actually get through into the room, into the computer and everything like that, so it's all good. I'm not sure if they can use the hamper or not. I was trying to place it where I thought they could use it. And I'm also sticking in a video game console in the living room because I thought that, I realized that was definitely something this house should have towards the end. And then I also stuck a controller on the coffee table just because I thought that would be another nice realistic touch for this house. But now we are on to the garage, which is the very last house. So as I said, we are getting this DJ booth in here. I also put in a dance floor. And I'm also so glad that with this patch, we are now able to have different buildings on different foundation heights. So you can see how the house is up on a foundation, but then this garage is down on the ground, which is just so cool. Like, it just gets rid of that whole issue with like trying to make garage doors look right. So I'm so glad that we are able to now do this. And yeah, I just really like how this garage turned out. Like it's nice that it's a garage, but it's something that's actually functional. But anyway, this is it for the building part of the video. So as usual, if you want to download this, there will be a link in the description to do so. I'll also have stuff in there on how to find in-game, and that's going to be all for me, so I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.